Hey, Steve Magnante here in Greensboro, North Carolina at the GAA Classic Car Auction, which is about to happen in a few days. And back in 2004 and 2005 and 2006, Ford built 4,038 Ford GT sports cars, and we have 3 of them here. They're going to get sold. With that said, 3 examples of the breed. Now, these are very special cars. These have aluminum bodies and a lot of exotic components, which we'll dig into right now. Now, of course, as you probably know, the original GT40 was built in the 1960s, and a company called Saphir Industries owns the rights to the term GT40, which means Ford had to use the term Ford GT. Now, these cars, of course, celebrate Ford's 100th anniversary, and what a way to celebrate with a reincarnation of the mighty GT40 to you and me. But anyway, we look into these things. These are mid-engine cars, as were the originals. They had small blocks or big blocks. These have something even more special under the deck lid at the back, but to keep that engine cool, the cooling module is up front. And you'll notice these things right here. These are ducts which allow air to escape from the cooling unit, the radiator, and the fans, blow up over the car, creates a little bit of downforce at speed. And these can go 190 miles per hour on a closed course, and all the aerodynamic touches are in there. When most people think about automotive aerodynamics, they focus on the front of the car. Dodge Charger, Daytona, Plymouth Superbird with the beak in the front. Well, the Ford GT has just as many tricky things at the front and the back. This thing here is called a wicker bill. Basically what this does, it creates a disturbance in the airflow which increases downflow, or downforce, I should say, also known as the Gurney flap, after Dan Gurney, who was a famous GT40 driver in the 1960s. So here it is, the wicker bill, aka Gurney flap, baked into every Ford GT. Another aerodynamic aid found at the back of every Ford GT is the diffuser right down here. And what this does is a hallway made of carbon fiber that runs from the front of the car to the back. These have a smooth belly with the exception of these diffusers. And what these do is they create an area for the air under the car to not be trapped, but rather to escape, and also expand a little bit, reducing downforce, or increasing downforce, and reducing drag. And again, this is part of every aerodynamic package on the Ford GT right there. It's made of carbon fiber. And if you could flip this car over, you'd see that it's flat underneath. So what you have basically is a difference in the air pressure at the top and the bottom of the car, which creates downforce, kind of like an airplane wing in slow motion. A beautiful example of Ford reimagining its own history. And the beauty of these two is the fact that these have the clamshell doors that were first seen back in the day, but with a wider cockpit, a little taller cockpit to accommodate taller drivers. And let's open this up here. And the door is open, the cut line goes into the roof. And again, aluminum door right here. And these are all 6-speed manuals, so if you can't drive a clutch, well, you're gonna find someone who can. And the center console in these is made of magnesium, and the engine, of course, the all-important engine, is at the back. And let's open the hatch and take a peek. And by the way, speaking of taking a peek, the beauty of these is they have a clear glass right here, which actually has a defrost feature. These are able to be driven year-round, potentially, if you really feel like it. But again, the defroster keeps the view at the back open if you're driving along. And this is before the days of the backup camera, so there's none of that in these cars. These were built in 2005 and 2006, so again, they're old. I don't think they're old, but they're older cars versus the modern GT, which is V6, twin turbo, a lot more exotic. But these are a great example of V8 muscle at its best. So let's open this up and have a peek at that 5.4 liter engine. And okay, now there's something here that was not in existence in 1964, 5, and 6, and 7, when these cars had, again, 289s or 427 pushrod engines. This is the 5.4 liter Camry, and again, the only Ford Camry 5.4 with the aluminum block, which was not in production for a few more years in GT500 Mustangs, but debuted here on the Ford GT. The aluminum block, reducing the amount of engine mass. But again, 4-valve, 4-cam cylinder heads, high-flowing heads. And again, the Lytrom supercharger right here, which makes that 5.4 behave like a 7-liter engine under boost. And again, engine located in the middle of the car allows it to have an excellent center of gravity, 50-50 weight distribution, big fat tires, front and rear, wider in the back than the front. Forged aluminum upper and lower control arms, and just a beautiful piece of packaging. And you can see right here the term I believe that's Steve Saleen right there. And Steve Saleen, of course, is the owner of the company that did the final assembly on these cars. And I think Wixom, Michigan, or Troy, Michigan, I think it was. But again, Ford built the initial shell at their special vehicles plant in Wixom, I think it was. And then from there, they were shipped to Saleen's plant in Troy, Michigan for final assembly. Now, here's the beauty of these is that there's a lot of exotic materials. And again, the center console or tunnel is magnesium. The fuel tank is inside of that. And it's basically built in there. It's seam welded around the fuel tank and fuel cell. And again, just a great example of everything that can be done with modern technologies for mass production. But again, there were about 4,000 and change of these cars built, and there's three of them going to get sold, or potentially get sold here at this auction next few days. Let's move around to the options seen on this car. It does have the optional stripes, and so does the one next to me. And we'll notice the white car on the end, or the silver car, lacks the stripes. We'll get into that in a second. But other options seen on this one and all of these three cars are the optional BBS wheels versus the 6-spoke wheels that were standard fare on the Ford GT. And of course, you gotta love these aluminum doors that close with a solid thunk. No kit car stuff going on here. These are very real, fully realized production, semi-production cars for you and me to buy back in the day. If you could, come up with 60 or 80,000 bucks, I think back in the day when he was new, you could buy one of these things. A guy with a, decent job, white collar job probably, could buy one of these things without too much strain. Nowadays, these are like $100 million cars, the new ones. With that said, these were when the GT was kind of priced to be affordable. So this one here is kind of an unusual car. It does have the optional BBS wheels, front and rear, not the 6-spokers, which were the base wheel. This one has the blue stripes, which are factory option, again, not standard fare. With that said, this is a Canadian export car. So let's get to that by opening the door. And speaking of opening the door, you'll see that there's a little button down here that unlocks the solenoid. You do this, and you are ready to lift the door or open the door. But inside the latch pillar right here, that blue sticker says Canadian. So this car was built for Canadian delivery, so it makes it slightly different. The sticker anyway, that's a certification sticker for the Canadian market. And this is the one of the three cars here that was built for Canadian export. Mechanically, the same car. There's nothing weird about the speedometer. There's no kilometer stuff. It reads either language if you want. Also, there's a Macintosh radio option, which I think this car has. But again, the wheels were an option, and also the painted calipers right here, the red calipers. You can get these in red or black. And again, this is the optional BBS wheels, but again, built for Canadian. With all the snow up there, it's appropriate that it's white. Just kidding, you wouldn't want to drive this in a snowstorm. But it has the same 5.4 liter supercharged engine with 500 horsepower and 540 foot-pounds of torque here at the back. And again, the aerodynamic stuff on this is absolutely real, unlike later Shelby Mustangs of the 60s and stuff, which had a lot of fake scoops on them. Some of them worked, but most of it was for show. Everything on this car was validated in the wind tunnel by Ford engineers. And here we have it here at the back. Heat extractors here allows the heat from the engine bay to escape and not cook the occupants. These do have a glass partition between the engine bay and the interior, so they're not that bad. In the summer, there's air conditioning standard fare on these cars. And to satisfy Canadian and federal laws, impact protection lines, all of them, the rear bumper is actually extended out by the body with these aluminum struts, which make it legal for road use in 50 states and Canada. And again, sort of a detail that's not seen in the original GT40s of the 1960s. But again, the Sentry exit dual exhaust right here, another baked-in feature, standard fare on all of these. And again, there were 4,000 and change of these cars built between 2005 and 2006, and here's two here. Now this one's unusual because it has black calipers, not the red ones. That's the standard issue piece right there. It says the optional BBS wheels, but we don't see the stripes on this one because that was a delete option if you didn't want the stripes, you didn't want to be as blatant to people driving around. This is kind of a stealth mode version. If you drive one of these and you think you're being stealth, you're not fooling anybody. But again, these are great cars for daily use in many situations. And this one is also a great example of the breed. Once again, the 6-speed manual transmission, the Ricardo 6-speed. We look inside, and we notice this one does not have the extra sticker that would be found on a Canadian car. The white sticker we saw on the white Canadian built vehicle. Canadian delivery vehicle is absent on this particular silver car as it was on the red one, because these are domestic delivery cars. And everything about these was built to withstand, regular rigors of daily use, including crash testing. Ford crash tested these cars at the proving grounds to make sure they were completely, safe and held to the federal standards, motor vehicle standards for safety and security. So again, beautiful example of the breed. Now this one here, again, minus the stripes, it's okay if you want to be stealth. The stripes would help to be more stealth. Of course, the central mounted tail light right there, brake light, mandatory on all vehicles from 1986 right till now, of course, baked into all of these cars. And once again, we have the glass window right there. And at the back, aerodynamic aids, the little spoiler here, which absolutely function. And again, the standoff feature on the rear bumper to protect it in low-speed impacts, and really clean cars, low miles on all of these vehicles. So come bid on them, and bid wisely. These are very collectible then and now.